Thank you both very much indeed. Uh, this session has been exactly the next step forward for us in NITI, and has brought together the acting locally and thinking globally perspective, which is a challenge for us in this Ayog, which is how do we make uh, what has to be done today into what sounds like a good policy or a law. And then in the middle of all that are the challenges faced by the practitioners, such as Kunal here, on ground level implementation, even as larger changes are taking place. Um, for us, as just for everybody's information, there is a subgroup of chief ministers, as you all know. There are 9 of them who are part of this subgroup who are going to submit a report on the Swachh Bharat mission. But it may not surprise you that the entire discussion and the challenges at the highest political level, which you can imagine 10 states is a large number of people and 1/3 of this country, they are engaged with almost the same issues as what is being brought up here. And their commitment to solutions is what I find extremely encouraging. But at the bottom of it all is what I think Kunal said, change in behavior, motivating people, awareness. It sounds so simple. It sounds like you put up a billboard and tomorrow people will start doing whatever you want them to do. The ultimate challenge lies in bringing about that transformation in each one of us. And that's something I never tire of saying, and I'll say it again here. I mean, we'll all go away from here feeling very educated, probably, but take any piece of garbage from here and throw it outside. Presumably not in a bin, because you'll either say it's too far away or the NDMC or whoever is responsible will do it in any case. So at the bottom of it all is a change in the way we look at what we produce. Is it of value or is it something to throw away? And how do we bring that basic transformation in each one of us? It leads to the largest and final conclusion which Ashish brought about, which is that waste is actually a resource. So it's really waste to wealth that we are talking about, and something the Prime Minister alluded to in one of his initial speeches on Swachh Bharat. He said that the person who comes to take away our garbage, we call him Kuda Lene Aaya Hai. Actually, he's the Safai person. He's the person who cleans up the house. So it's in a similar fashion that we are looking at something which we don't need in a household or an industry or in a commerce or in a market, and how does it turn into a raw material for a very large or very small or a medium-sized business. Now, that is where I think the scope of this entire discussion has radiated from the local to the highest. I have, if you permit me, just 3 questions, clarifications from Kunal. Did you have to do any changes in the municipal law other than give incentive in the form of property tax to encourage segregation? That's one. The second is, how much have you measured, how much is the decrease in the amounts dumped in landfills over the years? And how many years has this campaign been going on? And how many changes of leadership has it been able to sustain? Because that for us is a very big lesson here for practitioners.
The other thing, one is this tax rebate thing. The other thing is that when we sanction building permissions, the development control regulation has a mandatory requirement that you have to have decentralized waste management within your society. I think it's more than 50 houses. If you have more than 50 houses in a complex, then you have to have a mandatory vermicompost or some other mechanism by which you treat your waste within the society. So that is another thing which is there. Apart from that, plastic less than 50 microns is banned by the municipal corporation. So we take action against plastic which is which is less than 50 microns. Yeah, it's part of the law now. So these are 3 things which are there in the law.
How do you address commercial establishments and industrial establishments?
Uh, we actually do not have many industrial establishments within the city, so that's not a big problem. Commercial establishments, the same way our Swachh workers are going to those places. How hotels, we have a separate collection system, totally separate collection system, wherein the entire food waste is collected separately. And biomedical, we have a separate system. So through these multiple channels, we take care of this waste. In fact, since we have this separate system of collection of hotel waste and vegetable market waste and slaughterhouse waste, we are now setting up a 300-ton food waste plant just near the city, which probably would be the biggest food waste plant in the country, if not in the world, because of the fact that we have segregated waste available with us because of our collection mechanism. So that plant is going to be operational in the month of October this year. It's in the last stages of getting constructed. So that is one of the centralized solutions out of the many solutions that I talked about that we have ventured into.
The floor is open. I have to tell you that we have received a very enthusiastic response even online to our announcement. I hope many of you who have asked the questions are here and will ask your questions in person as well. So the house is open. Yes, please.
It was a great pleasure to have two very excellent presentation and Shobhagato's initial introduction to the subject. Now it has actually brought to the fore very important issues. Now as I see it, in a way, our problems have been compounded because we have missed the bus of land use plan. So right from the beginning, if we had done land use plan, possibly these issues wouldn't have come about. But anyway, that has already gone. Now the second issue is what Ashish said about the circular vis-a-vis linear economy. Now circular economy definitely is much more sustainable, but we need to do a lot more work.
Your question.
Yeah.
Your question.
Well,
We'll
so
receive your comments very happily.
okay. So the question would be that maybe NITI Aayog has to look into this, and would NITI Aayog be interested in looking in depth into the issue of circular economy, because it actually delves into so many other issues. So that would again, of course, border into my comments, but if you permit, I can just 2 minutes I can take. If we take, let us say, IT or automobile, for development of the economy, we need to expand the sector, which means more waste, which means quicker generation of waste. Today I have this mobile, next year it becomes redundant. So this means the industry is driven in a way that the industry goes up, but the waste also goes up. So this is a very important issue which needs policy intervention. Same is the case with automobile, for example. There are others also. So these two are very important issues. And thirdly, both I think at this stage, centralized and decentralized combination we have to carry on. Maybe we try to tend towards decentralized, but that requires a lot of work. And one thing I normally don't really, I mean, it's a matter of concern also, is whatever recycles are harvested by the informal sector.
We're running out of time. You can see the number.
So what happens to that needs to be tracked. Thank you.
May I request, whenever you make your intervention, please introduce yourself so that we are able to document your question. Yes, please.
My name is Devendra Singh. I am from Excel Industries Limited. My question to you is that whether NITI Aayog can play a role to make mandatory for new housing colonies or smart cities for their own waste management system, the way it is there in Pune, which Mr. Kunal shared, that there is a norm to have their own waste management system either by biogas or composting plant or such like this.
Please, yes. Questions before we respond? Or I'll
I'm
ask Kunal and Ashish to respond. And in fact, all questions to NITI Aayog also, I'll request you to tell us what we need to do.
Thank you. I'm Sunil Pandey and I work with Terry. And question is relating to Ashish and partly Dr. Majumdar also. When you look at circular economy, one of the impediment is growing toxics and hazardous chemicals getting into material stream. And when you recycle, refurbish or reuse something, there's always danger of coming out with products which are not suitable for use. So how do you tackle that?
You and then the gentleman behind you.
I'm Sangeeta Manav from HSMI Hatko. As Mr. Kunal said, I would like to know from him, besides political will and administrative support, do you feel that the intervention of people, institutions, you have very deep interventions in Pune, so should have been a critical factor? And if that be, then the question to Mr. Chaturvedi, that would an over-centralized approach have some bottlenecks in India, especially in terms of its implementation issues at the local level? Yeah, you said a centralized approach. Was that? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Pranav Path. I'm a student of class 11th at Mayo College, Ajmer. So my question to you is, Pune, of course, as you said, is a progressive city. However, considering our capital, which might as well be called the most backward when it comes to the political will, the coordination amongst federal structures, considering the recent DDMC strike we had where the city came to a halt, our streets were filled up with all the mess. So what do you think as an administrator, how do you deal with such situations when politicians are sleeping or they're either on the roads having party with the unions?
Kunal and Ashish, maybe you want to respond to the larger and the more local issues.
No, the first one which Sangeeta raised is about interventions by organizations and public institutions, public organizations. In fact, in Pune, we have been very lucky to have some excellent NGOs and some excellent community-based organizations, with the help of whom we have been really able to get people participation, citizens' participations happening in a long way, because when we see our municipal staff, howsoever we train them, it really becomes a kind of the outreach is not that good as far as converting people's mindsets is concerned. So a very major role in play, both in sanitation as well as solid waste management in Pune, has the success is to be given to the interventions that we have with the partnership with local organizations and community-based organizations. Now, Swachh Bharat is the talk of the day. In fact, it's the most important program for the government. And we know we have to build a lot of toilets. We have to build a lot of community toilets. We know the bigger challenge is management of those toilets and maintenance. We are flush with funds, we can build toilets, but we will never be able to maintain them unless we have people participating, unless we have people awareness towards toilets, towards the maintenance of toilets. And phenomenal work has been done in this regard in Pune. In fact, other day I was in Vigyan Bhavan, I presented my case study before all the municipal commissioners and the mayors who had come from across the country as to how NGOs have come together in Pune to help us in that. So both in sanitation as well as solid waste management, I would give a lot of credit for the success that we have to these community-based organizations in Pune. What was the other thing? I am not in a position to comment about Delhi, and especially I will not comment about any political issue.
Want to tell us what your wish list for NITI Aayog? There were a couple of...
Yeah. No, so I think I'll start with what Sunil said or asked about the toxicity of products. And so I think one of the critical features of circular economy is to phase out toxicity. So one of the things that I actually said about initiating dialogue was with the NITI Aayog initiating dialogue with manufacturers of products, of IT equipment, of cars, of consumer durables and things like that, to talk about how they need to phase out hazardous substances from these products. Because that's a fact, they're phasing them out in Europe, and I think India is a pretty large market, and India can also now dictate certain terms in terms of environmental standards of products as well. which is something which I think there is a lot to learn from what's happening in Europe. Because there are different product lines. There's something which is being manufactured for certain geographies, whereas other more environmentally benign products being manufactured elsewhere. And I think that's something that we need to take into account very clearly. You had another point. So I want to kind of buttress the point that Kunal made. It's about sort of waste management cannot be solved by municipalities or governments alone. And that's a challenge which most governments face. And it's about building the right kind of alliances. So Pune has been able to do an immensely interesting job. And of course, I know the Swachh model very well. I've been working with them for a really long time. And of course, they have had their share of struggles with the municipality as well. So it's not all hunky-dory and sort of very sweet and nice. There are challenges. There will always be challenges. But what the entire idea is that you have to build the right kind of alliances. And the Delhi scenario is very different. And I'm an academic. I don't want to plug my own paper, but I actually have a paper coming out in Delhi, which is just sort of in last week, which talks about the politics of waste management in Delhi. What's happening, who are the different kinds of interests, how they're driving the waste management scenario in different sort of situations. So I think that's something which we need to take acknowledgement of, that waste is actually a much larger problem. And I think Fiona and Pritpal have just done a policy brief as well. They might have copies of it here. So which talks about how the social construction of waste as a problem as well. And I think that's something which is very critical to understand, because certain cities have been able to find solutions precisely because they've been able to bridge these, the municipal commissioner has been a bridge builder rather than sort of burning bridges. And I think that's something which is very important to understand. And it's brilliant to hear Kunal talk about all these bright and shiny NGOs. I'm sure he struggles against them all the time. But I think that's something which is very important, to build the right kind of alliances within city governments to tackle this challenge.
Yes, Pritpal.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Rajkaran Singh Bhatti from Chandigarh. The way I look at it is that India is a hugely populated country, and we are already late in whatever we are doing right now. Tremendous amount of waste is produced on daily basis across the country. And besides management of waste, controlling waste is the core. And here the corporates, as well as trying to change the individual's habits, are the core from the long-term perspective. Corporates, in fact, I feel, are one of the principal contributors to the entire waste management. I mean, because there have always been, complaints regarding effluents, management of the factories.
Please ask your question.
No, ma'am. What I would like to suggest is to contain the corporates. They won't do it willingly, first and foremost. Had it been the case, this problem would not have risen to these levels. So what I would suggest is that in the audits of the companies, waste management should be ahead, where there should be a compliance report that waste management practices are being followed in the companies. That can be a part of the audit separately. Secondly, as far as the individual's habits are concerned, waste management as a subject at the school level, at college level and the PG level may be introduced. That increases the awareness of the children as well as the parents. Finally, as a subject of specialization, we can get good waste management experts for the future. 2. 3, ma'am, to in fact increase the motivation at individual level, at the city level, at the mohalla level, there should be some awards or something like that to recognize the efforts of good citizens who are contributing towards the cause. So we can look at, city awards. And next, ma'am.
Thank you. I think we'll move on.
No, ma'am, please. If
You didn't ask your question. You've got 3 comments. We have noted all.
No, regarding these villagers.
No, I suggest that let's get to others who have questions.
Thank you.
We'll please send your comments online. We'll take note of them. We'll start from that side. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm Sanjay Hazarika from the Center for Northeast Studies. I have a question for both the speakers. I was rather interested that neither of you referred to in any detail, perhaps there wasn't enough time, the fact that most of the so-called municipal workers certainly in this city and in many other cities, work in appalling conditions with no proper safety gear, without gloves. The whole thing is subcontracted to casual workers, and are exposed to toxicity of extremely high levels at all times. And I was really surprised that neither of you referred to this, because this is a violation of their rights. If they're doing something which is swatch, then it is a destruction of their rights as human beings. That's one. The second thing is, I know that the Chief Minister of Mizoram is on the national Swachh Bharat campaign. I've just come back from 10 days in Mizoram. And I think it'll be a good thing for either the NITI Aayog or whoever is running the Swachh Bharat campaign to spend a little time in Mizoram to understand how they have kept their towns, villages, there's only one city, which is the capital, Aizawl, so clean. It's basically because people are committed to cleanliness. It's a habit. It's not imposed by law. And unless we get that idea going, unless there's a community-driven campaign. I mean, I went to a professor's place for dinner the other day. He says, I clean the street outside my house. Everybody cleans the street. It's not, they don't wait for the municipal council to come and do their cling, the Ghanta Ghar or whatever it's called, Ghanta Gadi. So I think there are examples from small places which we can all learn from.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. We've all very deeply admirers of your work. I just wanted to let everybody know that our teams of officers from 10 states visited each other's states, and one of the states was also, of course, Mizoram, where other than confirming what has been stated, that is one of the cleanest states because of the exemplary participation of citizen groups. Kunal mentioned NGOs, there it is the citizens groups themselves. And the second is what at the highest level, the Chief Minister stated in one of the meetings, which is that until you give dignity to cleaning as an occupation or as a task, this is going to be always somebody else's job. This is something, it's not about mindset or behavior, it's about the way we think. And I think Mizoram has really led the way in creating that kind of a consciousness about being clean and cleaning your homes or your environments. It is one of the best practices that are going to be documented in the report that is going to be suggested. And in terms of, I think, safety equipment, I think it's part of the law, if I'm not wrong. Rakesh, is it? Isn't it part of the law about safety equipment for cleanliness sanitary workers? At least I know. I know that there was some proposal. What about your Swachh workers? Are they given?
No, we do provide them with gloves, masks, gumboots, raincoats. But I would agree with what he's saying, that doesn't get that much of priority which it should be given, and that's very unfortunate part. And when we do this kind of work, thousands of workers are employed across the city, and multiple contracts are there with various contractors, and not everybody does the work according to the contract, and then severe penalties or severe action that should be taken sometimes is not taken because of a lot of constraints. So this is one area where we all need to really work to ensure that all these safety standards, all their welfare benefits, and all the entitlements they're entitled to should be given to them.
Hi, I'm Kapil. I work with private institutes like universities and schools towards making them zero waste campuses by ensuring recycling and connecting the forward and backward linkages. So the question is, I plan to now work in remote Himalayas. So the concept of circular economy, I don't know how it will work there because recycling sector means recycling factories as well. And if there is no recycling factory for plastic and metal in those areas, how can we basically close the loop? What is the challenge in the rural India? Like the transportation of a plastic truck itself will be more than the value which you gain from the plastic, resale of plastic.
Hi, my name is Riya. I'm a student at Boston University. So I remember Mr. Kunal mentioning something about tax rebate. Why isn't there a stronger incentive system to drive citizen participation in the country?
Yes. I'm Marthan Shah from Jawaharlal Nehru University. My question is, whenever, let's say about laws, many times we see that police officers spitting on the roads. Okay, so whenever we try to go and complain, who to complain? Because whether we are complaining to, especially in the Hindi heartland, UP and Bihar, Jharkhand, all the police officers are chewing pans and like spitting on the roads. So where should a people, layman go and file his complaint?
There are 3 questions and then...
Hi, I'm Yashaswini. I work with a member of parliament. My question is, shouldn't there be a policy for the government itself to buy back recycled products? Even if you have construction and demolition waste, you can recycle it and get environment-friendly bricks. Then the government can itself buy it back and then implement it in all its construction and infrastructure products. There should be a policy in place for this. What are your opinion on it?
Hello, I'm Gajendra from National Law University, Jodhpur. So my question to the Ayog is that, do we have a law, or what are the prospects of a law at the national level which issues all these concerns of corporate social responsibility, individual social responsibility, and a community-driven campaign? Because we have seen that without a legislative sanction at the central level, and as Mr. Ashish correctly pointed out, that a decentralized model would completely fail, and we need a centralized policy for the conceptualization and contextualization of the waste management process in India. So what are the prospects of a centralized law in India regarding waste management?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Harijan Das. I'm a consultant on solid waste management. Ma'am, my one question is, where and when the rule for the allowing the each house generator, the waste generator for the separate disposal of the wet waste, kitchen waste, and the dry waste. If this is coming from the home, probably the kind of this whole problem we are seeing around the country will reduce to a certain extent. Why the rule has not come as yet? When we talk of your segregation at source, why it is not that each home is being asked that not from with effect from this date, this should be affected? Ma'am, another question is, can I ask NITI Aayog, there is a worldwide EM technology on which I am quite impressed and working at this age, which is a solution to the total waste management around the world, including India. So will that be a part of the campaign, on the waste campaign? This is my earnest request.
Hello.
We'll just take the responses at this juncture, which either of you or both of you.
I'll start. Yeah. So I'll start with the response on the rural question that you answered. So of course there are sort of the challenges in the rural areas are basically of scale. So how much waste, and I think that's why you need to encourage the repair and reuse industry. Because there are various ways of actually repairing. Like for instance, we've done some work when I was in India, we've done some work on even plastic bags in places like Vrindavan, where the plastic bags were woven into other things, reusable things. So you don't need to think about disposal right away. You actually can think about how can that be repaired and reused so that the waste does not come out at that sort of scale. And of course, it's related to that is also about the amount of infrastructure. Which is the closest city? How far is the closest city which has the necessary infrastructure? And that's where this trade-off between sort of, well, certain services the urban areas would actually provide certain services to the rural areas as well, so that you overcome this NIMBY kind of syndrome. Now it's called banana as well. You can Google what banana means. But sort of NIMBY has a new acronym which is called banana. And I don't want to sort of spend too much time on this. The other thing was about who monitors the monitors, right? So you asked about sort of, well, who do you complain to if you find a policeman sort of spitting on the streets? And of course, you should go and talk to him and discover what the consequences would be. But I think you should. But I don't think you should sit back and I think you should also ask yourself a question about how much waste or how much compost are you how much organic waste are you turning into compost at your house? And I think it's easy to have an outward orientation, but I think as Ms. Kulla said earlier, you have to look sort of within as well as an individual.
In fact, while we are skeptical on one side, I can surely say, working on the field, that a lot of change is happening in people. A lot of change is happening. In fact, when societies meet in Pune, why do resident welfare associations have meetings? Either for the maintenance of the society or for water issues or something. But I can assure you that one of the topics which is discussed in meetings in resident welfare associations and society meetings today is what to do about our waste, how to segregate waste, how to process waste within the society. Lots of societies are doing it. In the last month, we tracked about 80 societies. I don't know, I have no data about many other societies, but I can surely tell you about 80 societies which put in machines out of the many societies we have, and they're trying to, and a lot of people who are coming forward and helping us. So we should not be very skeptical. As he said, let's make our effort, go ahead and let us try to change whatever we can change ourselves first, and then try to change the world. As far as this is concerned, there are centralized grievance redressal numbers in most cities now. So if you have any issues with anybody who is doing this kind of thing anywhere, those centralized grievance redressal numbers can be approached, and people will then take care of such issues, even though there are policemen or whatever.
Just to round off the issue on regulation and who is to enforce the regulations if they are made, on the national level issue, the municipal solid waste rules exist. So do regulations for almost all other kinds of waste. But as you can see, the actual implementation is at the ULB level in terms of solid waste management, especially about segregation and further issues which Kunal discussed in great detail. So strictly speaking, even if you have a model national law, the actual, which I was reading about somewhere, the national law will only be a model law because the subject actually belongs to the grassroots of the third tier of government, which is the urban local body. They will make the regulations, and they are also presumably expected to enforce them. But eventually, it is each one of us sitting in this room who litters, each one of us who does not segregate, and all these discussions can be in as many theoretical formats as you like, but in the end, it is each one of us sitting here who will bring the change, if it has to come. And very specifically to add to what Kunal said about who will stop the policeman, I'm told these days that you're all supposed to take photographs and put it on WhatsApp and at mygov.in, and retribution will strike the policeman from somewhere. So I hope that happens, because that is something which is citizens vigilantes will do. But then next day that kind of person sees you littering, then, as I said, God help you. So just one last round of questions before we close. I think at the back there was, yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Divyashi Sharma, and I've worked with a member of parliament. So I want to understand whether the NITI Aayog is taking into account the geographical specificities in evolving a paradigm for Swachh Bharat. Just to elucidate the point, the needs and challenges of a city in a mountain would be different from the needs and challenges of a city in a plain.
So whether those changes are being factored in.
Our speakers need to actually wind up very quickly. So what I suggest is that those of you who have been shy about asking questions, please send it to us online. And we will certainly give it to both Kunal, Ashish, and I will try to address them myself. Last word to both Ashish and Kunal while I wind up. Before I wind up, would you like to say something?
I would just like to make a point. In fact, one grievance from the side of municipal commissioners is that we have been always talking about validation of technologies. While we just can't wait for technologies to get validated before we go ahead and bring these into force, because we are dealing with it day to day. So if there is some method where the NITI Aayog or the states or the central government can validate technologies from small technologies from, say, technologies which should be used in societies, then technologies which should be used in prabhaks, wards, 2 tons, 5 tons, 10 tons, and then bigger ones. Otherwise, all our experimentation today, I mean, we face so many issues in the future if they don't succeed. We do it in right earnest, we do it for the city, but at the end of the day, we may not, because as he's saying, there's a lot of lack of knowledge at the level of the ground, and we are all caught up in so much of firefighting and other issues that deep research just cannot happen in local bodies. So we don't have any guidelines to that effect.
Now, very quickly, I think we should have a national level panel on the transition or transformation to a circular economy, which actually looks at basically linking different missions of the government of India. So Swachh Bharat, Make in India, there has to be convergence across funds, functions and functionaries. That's what we've been hearing for a while. But I think it would be really impactful to actually give a very positive message to sort of citizenry as well, that it's not only about managing waste, it's about resources which are actually going to contribute to the growth and competitiveness of our nation as well.
Thank you very much. I think you have given me exactly the entry that I would like to have ended with. The challenge is for the mission to achieve Swachh Bharat by 2nd October 2019. Now, what that Swachh Bharat means is something we can all debate between now and 2019. But how do we get there? One simple test would be that do I see people defecating in the open and do I see litter on the streets? So these two are not something which we need high level of scientific inquiry to really achieve. And all of you will be around in 2019. Many of you have raised issues on the role of NITI Aayog in this entire enterprise. Our role predominantly is exactly what we are doing here, to bring a large number of you together, to sensitize you that this is not just about a government program, but it has very large implications from changing our own behavior up to building a circular economy, which Ashish has alluded to. It will lead to synergies in various programs. That is something we are discovering. At the very basic level, we find that the synergy between drinking water and sanitation is not as obvious as it should be to most of us. So, however horrific it sounds, that's where we are. That we have a drinking water program at the national level, and we have a sanitation mission at the national level. But from there to the other programs of skilling, of Make in India, and several other programs, all of them are interconnected because ultimately it benefits or impacts each one of us around the table. Immediately, we are talking about 4,000 odd cities in the next 5 years, all of them with 1 lakh plus population. This rural-urban divide is likely to slowly be blurred because the scale of segregation and processing and all the steps which were enumerated and all the way up to a very sophisticated circular economy will be different for different communities at different locations, different topographies, different geographies. And this challenge has been brought up already before the chief ministers because some of them, particularly those in the Himalayan states, have said that, look, we don't generate that kind of waste. But at the same time, their challenges still do exist on how to, for example, manage the plastic. Even if it is 10 bags, where does it go? So to the largest, say somewhere in Pune or Mumbai or anywhere of that 4 million plus population, or Delhi, however low we are on our civic radar, but we are still a very large city, or Mumbai, or the other metros, where the generation of waste is in itself a business opportunities, but looking into the future. How do the 4,041 cities get to manage their urban waste? How do they move from dumping into landfill sites to scientific disposal? This is a very basic question which is being addressed for the last 1 year and probably will intensify and become more refined as we go further. And the outcomes, as I said, at a very basic level will become visible very quickly. Those outcomes are if we all collectively find a way of addressing these issues together. On technologies, Kunal, yes, the Chief Minister's group has tasked an official subgroup to look into this issue. And again, in all these solutions, there are only two key issues. How do we do it? And second, whether it should be centralized or decentralized or both. And like all answers, choose whichever one suits you best and act upon whatever works for each one of the communities or individuals, as the case may be. Ultimately, the goal is one, which is Swachh Bharat. You can interpret it whichever way you like. I thank all of you for being here. You have sent us a large number of questions. We are really enthused. We'll try and address or answer each one of them, and we'll ask Kunal and Ashish also to help us out in that. And hope to see you all in the next lecture. Thank you.